President Buhari appoints Adamu Mohammed as Acting Inspector General of Police. INEC releases regulations, guidelines for the conduct of 2019 general elections. In international news, China sentences Canadian man to death as tensions escalate between both countries. And in sport, Super Falcons off to a four-nation tournament ahead of 8th FIFA Women's World Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari has appointed and decorated Adamu Mohammed as Acting Inspector General of Police. The new acting IGP was serving at the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies in Jos before his appointment. He was a former commissioner of police in Enugu State and hails from Nasarawa State. His appointment is expected to douse tensions surrounding the rumored plan to elongate Ibrahim Idris' tenure. Opposition parties had kicked against that plan and had called the federal government to appoint a new Inspector General. Ibrahim Idris will retire today at 60 years of age. He has served the nation for 35 years. Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, says it will submit its reports to the federal government on Tuesday in response to the proposal made to the union last week. National President of the Union, Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, said ASUU members have rejected the federal government's offer, saying they would not accept tokenism. Ogunyemi said he expects the federal government to commit itself to a full payment of 220 billion naira for revitalization. The money used would be spread over 5 quarters in order to show commitment to aggrieved union members. Ogunyemi said the proposal of more than 34 billion naira is too low when compared to 1 trillion naira. The national president also said evidence of payment must be made to back up all the talks. Ogunyemi said members are willing to shift grounds on the strike if the government meets its own obligations. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has released the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of next month's general elections. The 33-page document shows the smart card readers and permanent voter cards to be used in elections. One of the guidelines is that no person shall be allowed to vote at any polling unit where his or her name does not appear in the voters' register at the location. Also, separate queues shall be created between men and women where the culture does not allow mingling. It added that presiding officers would also create separate queues for persons with disabilities. For complete information on the regulations and guidelines, you can visit INEC's website. A Federal Capital Territory High Court has dismissed a suit by a member of the House of Representatives, Oladipupo Adebutu, against the emergence of Senator Buruju Kashamu as governorship candidate of the PDP in Ogun State. Justice Ajoke Adepoju held that Adebutu was nominated for the governorship election by the PDP National Working Committee. The justice said she cannot maintain Adebutu's suit against the defendants because the primary election that produced Adebutu was conducted in violation of a subsisting court judgment. Justice Adepoju says the PDP National Working Committee acted in bad faith by disregarding a subsisting judgment of a federal high court to produce the candidate. She said the PDP National Working Committee can hold valid primary election without recourse to the Ogun State chapter of the party or outright approval of the party until the judgment against it by Justice Buba has been set aside by a higher court. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arraigned former senior special assistant to former President Goodluck Jonathan, Doyin Okupe, for money laundering. Okupe was arraigned before Justice Ijoma Ojukwu of the Federal High Court in Abuja on a 59-count charge of money laundering and criminal diversion of 700 million naira. Two companies, Value Trust Investment and Abrams Telecoms, were also charged in the case. Okupe was granted a 100 million naira bail with one surety. In another development, former Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Jumoke Akinjide, wanted her international passport released by the Federal High Court in Lagos, but the case was adjourned till late January. Akinjide is on trial for allegedly laundering 650 million naira. Her lawyer, Chief Bolaji Ayorinde, told the court on Monday that his client needs the passport so she can travel abroad. I already told Justice Muslim Hassan that the application was ripe for hearing, noting that Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, which is prosecuting Akinjide, did not file any court process in opposition. But the prosecuting counsel for the EFCC, Rotimi Oyedepo, urged the courts not to hear the application yet, as the ex-minister's co-defendants had filed separate applications to challenge the court's jurisdiction. Away from that, maritime lawyers and clearing agents are happy with the federal government for banning rice importation through land borders. They say the policy has reduced importation of rice and increased local production. They urge Nigerians to support the policy, which they say has paved the way for more investments in local rice farming. The policy is also said to have encouraged many state governments to embark on large-scale rice production. Such investments include large collaborative efforts between Lagos and Kebbi states and between Enugu and Ebonyi states. The maritime lawyers and clearing agents are also asking for available subsidy in fertilizers to encourage interested parties in rice production. Minister of Mines and Steel Development Abubakar Bawa has said 11 private investors are interested in the concessioning of a Jalkota steel company. He said legal issue around the company has been resolved, with it reverting fully to the federal government. Buhari did not disclose when the privatization process would commence, but he indicated that it would be concessioned to a firm that had the financial muscle, technical know-how, and engineering commitments to the nation's steel sector development. The minister disclosed that the Jalkota steel plant was about 98% complete, but that the remaining 2% consisted of infrastructure without which the plant would be unable to operate, even if it were 100% completed. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has confirmed it is ready to host the maiden edition of Lassa Fever International Conference. The Chief Executive Officer, NCDC, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwezu, said the conference is in partnership with other stakeholders and would hold on Wednesday and Thursday in Abuja. He said researchers and practitioners will share and appraise global efforts towards the control of the Lassa fever virus disease. Ihekwezu said the conference would also be an opportunity to increase global health focus on the disease, which is found mostly in West Africa. The NCDC chief executive added that as awareness and disease surveillance systems improve across West African countries, more cases were being detected. Coming up, African stories. Gabon's president returns home after extended medical leave. And later, international news. China sentences Canadian man to death as tensions escalate between both countries.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house house, at your office, on your phone or online. We are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to stories from across the continent. Judges at the International Criminal Court have acquitted former Ivorian leader Laurent Gbagbo of all war crimes charges. The court has also ordered his immediate release. He was charged with crimes against humanity in connection with violence that erupted after a disputed election in 2010. Gbagbo was the first former head of state to be tried at the ICC. Presiding Judge Kune Tafusa said prosecutors failed to prove their case, so Gbagbo and co-defendant Charles Blegood, a close ally and former political youth leader, should be set free.
The majority hereby decides that the prosecutor has failed to satisfy the burden of proof to the requisite standard as foreseen in Article 66 of the Rome Statute. Grants the defense motions for acquittal from all charges against Mr. Laurent Gbagbo and Mr. Charles Blegood. Ordered the immediate release of both accused pursuant to Article 81(3)(c) of the statute, subject to any request by the prosecutor under subparagraph I of this article.
Protesters have blocked Ethiopia's main routes to the sea in northeastern Afar region to demonstrate against surging ethnic violence. A member of an organizing committee in Mahibule said on Monday the demonstrators started a 5-day blockade of the highway to neighboring Djibouti. That handles roughly 95% of all inbound trade for Ethiopia. Critics of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his political reforms had allowed dormant ethnic rivalries to resurface in Africa's second most populous nation. Nearly 3 million persons were displaced last year because of clashes among ethnic groups. Egyptian authorities have deported a German teenager on Monday whom they say had entered the country with the intention of joining Islamic State militants fighting security forces in the Sinai Peninsula. The teenager was the second German citizen to be deported from Egypt for alleged links to IS authorities, repatriated another 23-year-old last week. The said police found maps of Sinai and a compass in his possession when he was detained at Luxor Airport in December. It was later revealed after he was questioned that he subscribed to IS ideology and was in online contact with members of the militant group. Low-cost African airline FastJet said on Monday it had cancelled its remaining Zimbabwe flights because of political unrest. Anger sparked as the government more than doubled petrol and diesel prices. The worst economic crisis in a decade spilled onto the streets. Protesters barricaded roads and burned tires in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, on Monday. Several people have been killed and 200 arrested as the main labor union confederation began a national strike. Foreign exchange shortage has also sparked scarcities of everything from fuel to bread. It has also caused doctors to stay away from work and companies to cut or cease production because they are unable to import raw materials. Meanwhile, many have joined a call by the Zimbabwe Congress for Trade Unions for a 3-day stay-at-home protest. Streets were mostly quiet on Tuesday in the country's capital, Harare, and second largest city, Bulawayo. At banks, schools and businesses stayed shut. Most public taxis were off the road as well. Senegal's Constitutional Council says it has barred 2 best-known opposition figures from running next month's presidential election. A former mayor of Dakar, Khalifa Sall, not related to President Macky Sall, and Karim Wade, son of former President Abdoulaye Wade, were both barred because of convictions for misuse of funds. They were jailed for graft and corruption in 2015 and 2018. Under Senegalese law, the sentences effectively ended their chances of running in the February election. The opposition says the sentences were part of the president's plan to silence popular opponents so he can secure a second mandate. The ruling party has denied these charges. President Ali Bongo has returned to Gabon on Monday after a 3-month medical leave during which a coup attempt was thwarted. Bongo had suffered a stroke during a conference in Saudi Arabia in October and was flown to Morocco in November for treatment. His return comes a week after a small military group took over the state radio station. The move to grab power was quickly halted but exposed growing frustration in the oil-producing country over Bongo's secretive absence. Bongo appointed a new government on Saturday in an apparent effort to shore up its political base, including the nomination of Julian Gore Bekale as Prime Minister. The new government will be sworn in on Bongo's presence on Tuesday. The media will not be allowed to attend. When we return, international stories. China sentences Canadian man to death as tension escalates between both countries. And later, sports. Super Falcons off to a 4-nation tournament ahead of 8th FIFA Women's World Cup. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
Welcome back. This is INEC News. In global news, New Zealand is facing a strike by at least 80% of its union doctors over working condition and pay. Talks between the doctors' union and the government have broken down as the government faces difficulties in fulfilling its promise to increase funding for social services. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern had promised to control economic equality and improve social benefits when she took office in 2017. Even the government's traditional union base of support complains of slow pace of wage growth and increasing living costs. School teachers, nurses and court officials went on strike last year to demand pay increase. 3,300 of the country's 3,700 doctors have stayed off their jobs when talks between the union and the government broke down last week, causing thousands of surgeries, non-essential appointments, no medical services to be cancelled. A Canadian man has been sentenced to death by a Chinese court on Monday for drug smuggling. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says China is using the death penalty arbitrarily. This development weighs heavily on the already worsening relationship between the two countries. Canada had arrested a Chinese company executive last year, while China responded by detaining 2 Canadians. Rebel Lloyd Schellenberg, who had appealed an original 15-year prison sentence, was retired and is given a death penalty. He has 10 days to appeal this new sentence. China had warned Canada of unspecified consequences unless Huawei Technologies' chief financial officer, whom Canada detained in December, was released. China has not indicated whether Schellenberg's trial and conviction were related to the Hmong row, but Western diplomats have described it as a tit-for-tat action. A British newspaper is reporting that Prime Minister Theresa May has decided to force a second parliamentary vote on a Brexit deal, despite facing defeat. A parliamentary vote against May's deal on Tuesday is expected to open up a range of options that could include a disorderly divorce and reversing Brexit. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is said to have offered last-minute lifeline of extra EU concessions to May's plan should Parliament vote against it. Such concessions would include persuading Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar to embrace an end date to the so-called Irish backstop. Days after Brasilia officially recognized an opposition leader as the legitimate head of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro has reacted by calling Brazilian Prime Minister Jair Bolsonaro a modern-day Adolf Hitler. Brazil said on Saturday it recognized Juan Guaido, head of Venezuela's opposition-run Congress, as legitimate president. This followed a general worldwide stance that Maduro's second-term swearing-in was illegitimate. Maduro described Bolsonaro as a fascist and a Hitler of the modern era during the State of the Nation speech, but Brazil's president's office said it would not comment. The United States and Turkey had expressed against each other's stance on the issue of Kurds fighters in Syria. Washington says they must not be harmed by Turkey once the U.S. withdraws its troops from Syria. Ankara says it cannot be intimidated by U.S. threats to punish Turkey economically if it attacked the Kurds. Withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria is believed to hold the potential of leaving the Kurdish militia under threat as Turkey mulls over a new offensive there. U.S.-Turkey relations have worsened because of American support for the Kurdish YPG, which Turkey views as a terrorist group, but which supports the U.S. in its fight against ISIS. It controls parts of northern Syria. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has vowed to crush the group in the wake of Trump's decision to pull out U.S. troops from Syria. Up next, sports. Super Falcons off to a four-nation tournament ahead of 8th FIFA Women's World Cup. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Nigeria's Super Falcons are presently in China for a four-nation tournament as part of the preparations for the 8th FIFA Women's World Cup in France this summer. The team includes 16 players and 9 officials. Host China, Romania and the Korea Republic are the other teams participating in the 4-day invitational starting on Thursday. Azizat Oshoala and Francisca Odega are absent, while Faith Michael, midfielder Rita Chikwelu and forwards Enya Basio Moto and Chinaza Uchendu are expected to join the team from Europe. 10 universities across Africa will campaign for honors at this month's Made in African Student Football Union ASUU Invitational Championship, the ASUU Cup 2019. The competition organized by the African Student Football Union is a qualification championship for International Students Football World League 2019-2020 season in Russia. Preliminary stages will hold for a week from Saturday. The final will take place a week later at the Agege Stadium. That is the end of news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.